help us set the scene for tonight and the tone for this evening, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Val to the podium, who's going to talk about, to help us reimagine the city.
It is my honor to welcome you tonight and to really lead us into tonight's conversation and set the scene a little bit. And I thought that since we are in the health sciences faculty, I would start and lead us off with the S word. Science. So here we go. The second law of thermodynamics, right? The second law of thermodynamics broadly states that in an isolated or closed system, things tend towards a state of greater disorder and dissipated energy. In other words, a closed system leads to narrowing horizons, to a state of chaos and decay. In a word, entropy. Achebe and Yeats might say, things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Tonight you'll hear many stories that might lead you to believe that we are indeed living in a closed system. In fact, you have only to open the newspaper or look around at your own community and world to believe that this is true, that we are moving from order to just chaos, that decay is increasing at ever rapid speeds, that disorder will win the day, that violence, war, and destruction hold within them an inevitable momentum that we cannot hold out against, that this is just the way things are, that hate wins, the empire has struck back, and nothing we can do will make a difference. If you believe we are living in a closed system. But what if we're not? What if our world, the political, economic, and social systems in which we find ourselves, is able to be infused with new energy? What if that energy lies within us? Some might call this our innate creative capacity, the image of the Creator reflected in us, that uniquely human trait to dream, believe, and imagine, even to rebel, to dare to act out of line. What if our creativity is the means to crack these entropic systems open, to allow life back in? So let's imagine for a little bit. 23 years ago, the binding laws of apartheid fell, but the underlying spirit has remained largely intact and continues to reflect in many of our current systems. Semantically, apartheid came from the Dutch words apartheid, meaning separate, and heit, meaning hood or nis. That is the philosophy and ideology promoting the separateness or separate condition of groups. The fundamental objective of this ideology was disconnection. This was accomplished through a series of laws that embedded separateness spatially in access to resources, to education, to opportunities, to healthcare, to industry, to land, and more. All of it was aimed at the essential separation and fundamental disconnection of people and breakdown in relationships. In this, it was entirely successful. As you listen to the following speakers tonight, you'll learn more about the work still before us to dismantle these separate systems. But I want to invite you to jump ahead with me and ask yourselves as you listen, what a reimagined city might look like. What would a city that is being cracked open and infused with creative energy look like? A city that has space for life to thrive, access to food that nourishes our bodies, homes that are spaces of rest and respite, work that engages our minds and bodies, allowing us to support and sustain ourselves, sanitation systems that keep us healthy and affirm the fundamental sanctity and dignity of the body, air to breathe, land to nurture, beauty and spaces in which to meet each other face to face. I long for a city that takes every apart and replaces it with a co. A city which allows us to commune, to live together, to collaborate, to work together, to cohabit, to dwell together, and to co-create, to make and create together. This kind of reimagining will require two things of us. Firstly, to radically recalibrate our understanding of the world and our place in it. And secondly, to reconfigure our geographies to match these new imaginings. The first task that other speakers this evening will take you through, as they open our eyes to realities we've perhaps only read about, and as they unpack what is and what can be done to shift these realities. But let me give some insight on why I think the second is so important. Our problem, our challenge, is that while we have addressed the laws of apartheid, while we recognize that there are economic systems which still need to be transformed, that there's infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt and priorities which need to be shifted, we have not recognized that our greatest work is to realign the relationships that were broken by the apartheid project. Above all, we need a city of lower walls and longer tables, a city that doesn't fence in or fence out. We need a polis in the original Greek understanding, a tight-knit small community of citizens who agree on certain rights and responsibilities, a true metropolis, a mother city. We need to learn how to coalesce, to come together and reconfigure ourselves into a new whole. Before any project, programs, or grand schemes to infuse our broken systems with new life, we are called to come to the table as whole people. The most important work before us then is to reconfigure our personal and intimate geographies, orientated towards the kind of city and world that we imagine. Space, real physical space, matters. Space shapes behavior, and behavior over time becomes culture. So if we want to transform our culture, we have to make real, tangible changes to the kinds of spaces we inhabit, moving out of and moving into. When I talk about our geographies, I'm referring to both the physical spaces in which we live, but also the social spaces, the networks and the circles in which we move in. Where you work, the restaurants you frequent, the places your children play in, the friendships you nurture, the books you read, the shows you watch, the news you follow, where you go to gym, and who is invited to your table. These things don't happen automatically, and nor do they happen quickly. They happen through a long series of small and intentional decisions to alter the kinds of spaces we inhabit. Reconfiguring our world requires movement. Let's get moving. For a long time, I had an email signature that read as follows: we're not thinking our way into a new way of acting. We're acting our way into a new way of thinking. I have utmost respect for the other speakers you'll hear from tonight, because they have thought long and deep about the context that they find themselves in. But they have also recognized that their thinking is shaped by their acting. Our thinking and our acting needs to become so intertwined that the one must always inform the other, until we find ourselves with that famous causality dilemma, which came first. So as you listen this evening, I hope that you pay attention to where your spirit quickens around issues of injustice in the city. There will be things that you hear that will anger you, because they are being said, or because they'll be doing the hard work of beginning to recalibrate your reality. There are things that may make you feel deep disquiet about the way things are in the world, and that might draw you into uncomfortable spaces. So here's your second invitation. I hope that you do not shrink back from the discomfort some of these ideas will raise in you, that you will allow the dis-ease to simmer, that you will push into the hard spaces and allow it to ignite something in you, so that when you leave the space, you do so differently than the way that you entered in. Pay attention to the conversation that you begin having with yourself. And 3, I hope that as you pay attention to where your spirit quickens and allow yourself to sit with that discomfort, that you will ask yourself what is required of you. This evening is a space where our thinking is challenged and molded. Allow your thinking to begin to refine your action. At the same time as we begin to refine our thinking, we'll find our action refined. Let this evening be about both of these. Now, you may be tempted to the easy solution, believing that these things that cannot be can be simply fixed with money. That if we just throw enough resources and more funds at these issues, that we can bring resolution. The reality is that money is not all that is required, and your money is not what is required solely. So allow yourself to ask that question. What does it mean for me to respond to these challenges? And what I am hearing is, if I truly believe that I am a whole people, and what is required of us is whole people meeting each other at the table. As we begin to reimagine our world, recalibrate our thinking, and reconfigure our actions, we may just find ourselves letting go of the closed system belief that justice is nowhere and begin seeing that justice is now here.